Morning everyone, and welcome to the start of week 7 of lockdown. I hope you're all keeping well and most importantly staying safe and looking after each other. Today I want to discuss this word up here with you, achievement. And we're going to go through a couple of examples of what that looks like. What I want you to do to begin with is just for a second, I'm just going to pause for a second. I want you to think back over the last few weeks, 6 weeks if you want to, since you left school. Think about all the stuff you've done while you've been at home. You've done loads and loads of stuff. And I want you to pick for me one thing that you consider to be a real achievement. Okay, think about that now. Got one? Good. Keep it in your head. We'll come back to it later on. This lady on screen is a children's author called Rachel Bright. Some of her books are pictured at the top there. And if you just have a quick look at them all, you'll see that quite a few of them include animals. Rachel actually lives on a farm near the seaside in the UK. And that's certainly true of the book we're going to read today in this morning's assembly, which is called The Lion Inside. Now, quite a few of you hopefully would have just gone, we know that book, because if you are currently in year 1, or certainly if you were in year 1 last year, you'll recognise this book, The Lion Inside, because it was on your spring term bookshelf. So we're going to read this one this morning, and even if you know it, I hope you enjoy it. So this is The Lion Inside by Rachel Bright and Jim Field. In a dry dusty place, where the sand sparkled gold, stood a mighty flat rock, all craggy and old. And under that rock, in a tiny full house, lived the littlest, quietest, meekest brown mouse. He was so very tiny, so incredibly small, that nobody noticed him ever at all. He got trod on and sat on and missed out for stuff, ignored and forgotten. Yes, mouse life was tough. Meanwhile, far above, on top of the rock, times were quite different. It was 9 o'clock. This huge, toothsome creature made sure everyone saw how important he was by how loud he could roar. He was head of the pack. He was shouty and tough. He loved showing the crowd he was made of strong stuff. Yes, all were impressed by this mighty king cat. If only, thought Mouse, I could be more like that. Then late one dark night, in his Minnie Mouse bed, the cleverest thought popped into his head. He jumped from the covers and held up a paw. I've got it, he said. What I need is a roar. I mean, what if this mouse with the weeniest squeak was a little more grrr and a little less meek? Well, he'd still be the smallest of fuzzy brown mice, but he'd make friends and join in, and life would be nice. Yes, thought the mouse, I must find out how. I'll learn how to roar, and I will learn it now. But gulp, oh my gosh, there was only one beast who could teach him this thing but might make him a feast. It was time to be strong, take a chance. After all, forever was such a long time to feel small. So he made himself brave, and he thought like a winner. He set off for the top, hoping not to be dinner. It felt like the scariest thing he could do. But if you want things to change, you first have to change you. The further he climbed, the closer he got to the slumbering lion reclining on top. Then, at last, as he stood on his tippy toes, he found himself suddenly nose to nose. Gulp, pardon me. Wake up, Mr. Lion, you've got company. Squeak, Mr. Lion. What I've come to you for is, Squeak, do you think you could teach me your roar? A silence befell that twinkling plain. Lion opened his eyes and puffed out his mane. Time slowed right down. Why, it felt like a week. Then he opened his mouth and let out an eek! The lion was shaking, his paws all a fumble. He was backing away with a scrambling tumble. "Don't hurt me," he whimpered. "I'll try to be nice." Well, my goodness, this lion was frightened of mice. "Don't worry," Mouse peeped. "I'm a friend, not a foe. Let's rock this together. We'll have fun, don't you know?" That was a magical moment for sure, when Mouse didn't feel at all small anymore. He had found his true voice and learned to speak out. And for that, you don't need to roar or to shout. And from that day and always, the two were a pair. They both liked that rock better, now the rock was to share. The mouse, while still little, felt big in his head, and Lion, he still roared, but with laughter instead. Yes, that day, they both learned that no matter your size, we all have a mouse and a lion inside. I Was the Lion Inside by Rachel Bright and Jim Field. So usually at this point, again, I'd be asking all of you children to be thinking about the rights of the child, the articles from the Rights Respecting Schools. So have a little think for yourself. Pause this assembly if you would like to, just to have a little discussion with mum or dad or brother or sister, and then we'll move on. So again, you might have thought of different rights, but these are the three that I've pulled out. Article 8, you have the right to an identity. Article 12, you have the right to a voice and for it to be listened to and taken seriously, and that is regardless who you are, no matter how big or small or any differences we might have. Article 29, you have the right to an education which develops your personality and abilities as much as possible and encourages you to respect other people's rights. And that one in particular is about no matter what your strength or your size or your ability, the education you get and your upbringing should allow you to develop those strengths into even bigger and better strengths. Here's a man you might recognise. This is Captain Tom Moore, who a few weeks ago decided to do what he could to support the NHS. And he decided to set himself a fundraising target and raise that money by walking around his garden. And he has ended up raising nearly £33 million, which is a colossal achievement. Now it makes me think, why? Why has this man become so popular? Why did he end up raising so much money? And what is it that has made the whole country really interested in what he's been doing? You know, these are his cards from his 100th birthday. For his 100th birthday, he was given a fly pass from Spitfires, which is down here. So why is it that a man walking around his garden has got the affection of so many people and raised so much money? And I think part of the answer to that, there's two answers I think. Number one is that at a time when lots of people are finding it hard to stay positive for lots of reasons, this is a man who really has looked on the positive side of what's going on at the moment and thought, what can I do about it? And the second thing, and this is when I want to talk about the word achievement, is because for lots of you, walking around your garden is not going to be a hugely difficult thing. Most of you can manage to walk around your garden several times, even if it's days and days on end. But this is a man who's just turned 100, an old man who was using a frame to walk around his garden. And that's when I want us to come back to this word achievement. So I want you to come back now to that thing that I asked you to think about right at the start of this assembly, an achievement that you have made over the last, let's say, 6-7 weeks, and what that is. And I want you to keep in your head, why is it? Why did that spring in particular to mind? And then I want you to think about, what does this word mean? What's the real meaning of that word achievement? Okay, here it is from the Collins Dictionary. An achievement is something which someone has succeeded in doing, especially after a lot of effort. Now, you keep that thing in your head that you'd thought of, that you'd maybe done at the start of these few weeks when you've been at home, or even more recently. Now, I hope the thing that you've picked you achieved after a lot of effort, or at least a reasonable amount of effort. I think I wouldn't often agree with disagree with a dictionary definition, but I'm going to come back to what's on the screen at the moment. An achievement is something which someone has succeeded in doing, especially after a lot of effort. I think we need to change that word especially and change it to only. An achievement is something which someone has succeeded in doing only after a lot of effort. I think if you've done something that's been very, very, very easy, it's not much of an achievement. A real achievement is something that really does take a lot of effort. And the important thing here, and this is really important, is that it doesn't really matter in a way what it is. Because one thing for one person will be a real achievement, and for another person, it won't. Achievement is something very personal to you. It's something you have achieved because it's something hard that you have overcome, and you have either done one individual thing or got better at something. And if you've overcome something that's particularly hard for you, that could be anything. It could be running, it could be spelling, it could be cooking, could be anything at all. If you've overcome something that's difficult for you, that's an achievement. And I think that's especially important at the moment. You know, don't worry about what anybody else is doing. Everybody at the moment is doing what they can. They're doing their best in a situation that none of us have been in before. If you are doing your best, if you are trying to do hard things, tough things, you're overcoming those, it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing, because that achievement is yours and nobody can take that away from you. And like I say, absolutely everybody at the moment is doing what they can. Mums and dads, that goes for you as well. Everybody's doing what they can. I'm going to leave it there. I want you to reflect on that, the achievements that you've had over the last few weeks and the achievements that hopefully you'll have this week as well. Have a great week. Be good to each other. Stay safe. And we hope very much to be able to see you very soon. Okay, bye-bye.